welcome back to the techno-communism conversation. I'm going to talk again about some steps towards building the AI agentariat. That is a network of open source large language models which would, by the standards of today, if they were all made readily available, would be described as being agentic, being able to plan and have insights into their actions, and for the purposes of collaboration behave in a sufficiently human-like way, as opposed to the chatbots you're probably more familiar with that have emerged over the past year and a half, particularly, that are very capable writing assistants, programming assistants, work assistants in some ways, but not really able to operate in an autonomous or semi-autonomous way. And but with each passing month, more developments along these lines are made, and there are at this time a pretty wide variety, extremely wide variety, really, if you count all variants of open source LLM choices that would be equal to the task to some degree for the purpose of building a first attempt at building a larger scale decentralized network. So this is a technical roadmap to freeing humanity from toil and want through the use of the AI agentic class network. And it is toward building a utopia by cultivating cybernetic socialism for a just and equitable world. This essay is suggesting a roadmap for achieving what is effectively a socialistic AI utopia, a world free from toil and want. And it suggests some technical and social considerations required to build the system, grounded in the principles of the existing discipline of cybernetic socialism, informed by what we try to articulate on this channel, a revolutionary cybernetic socialism, and cybernetic socialism focused on the emerging technologies most relevant today, particularly machine learning and large language models. That is always subject to change at a moment's notice. Of course, the thing that is ultimately used to build out something like an AI agentariat is not that likely to be based on large language models. The other computing subfields are likely to become more competitive. So we can talk in this conversation about the needs for an AI agentic class and its development, its essential functionalities, and other considerations around its implementation. And we can discuss how the AI agentariat, coupled with a revolutionary cybernetic socialist movement training, hold the potential to usher in an unprecedented human flourishing. And I say a movement here, I want to remind you, if you're spending time online or with many kinds of organizations offline, to avoid the trap of trying to win hearts and minds solely as your primary action. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but by and large, if you're online, you're arguing with people who are not real human beings, sock puppet accounts, or capitalists treating in bad faith. So your objective is not to tail them or to pander to them. Your objective is to build something like the Soviets did in the early 20th century, like Castro and company did in Cuba, which is to build an insurrection, an insurgent movement that would be capable of bringing about this kind of change in your country, which generally requires, in a lot, there's been studies into this that suggest 3% of the population in any given place sometimes less. Castro and company was a few dozen people at the beginning. They had very little popular support or interest in what they were doing. Today, that's not the case. They have um, near global support for their government and high comparable support within their country. Um, and a reminder that the exigency here of not tailing or pandering bad faith capitalists and functionaries of Project Mockingbird, the chatbots that you meet online, is quite simple. We have 5 years before we reach runaway overheating caused by capitalism's climate apocalypse, at which time it will be a certainty that billions of people will die because of the oven turning on in the decades to follow. That's to say, we'll be cooked like turkeys in an oven, human beings. Many billions of people will die because of this. This will be irreversible at a certain point in the years to come, but it is not irreversible now. So we have to build a kind of organization that is agile, powerful enough to stop the forces of evil that would destroy humanity. Most notably, the United States and its military-industrial complex, which is the world's worst polluter, and whose only real job on the world stage, despite what mouthpieces of U.S. fascism and North Atlantic fascism will say, its only real job on the world stage is to protect other super polluters, creating an inescapable global regime of super pollution of the kind that I've just described, and so we must build a thing, and that's why I've spent a lot of time writing about, thinking about, talking about the AI agentariat, AI agentic class network that's distributed in the way that I've described, decentralized in the way that I've described. It's not because I think that decentralization is ideologically the soundest strategy, but it rather is a strategic necessary because the fascist United States, the anti-communist United States, is extremely good at destroying countries, centralized projects of a socialistic kind and cybernetic socialistic kind, like Allende's Cybersyn project, which would have, if allowed to flourish, transformed thinking, and I think brought about already an AI takeoff of a more socialistic kind. This was a fear of the ruling elites that that people would be inspired in this way, in the way that they were inspired by the Soviet Union in the early mid 20th century, to imagine transformation of planned economies, and a technological planned economy is a more powerful development still. So they've instead, in the years since 1973, co-opted advanced technology and advanced computing, the most powerful tool that's ever existed, AI, and turned it into a thing with a lot of bells and whistles attached, but of very little substance when it comes to the things most important: building a humane and sustainable world, material conditions for the toiling masses. These things are almost completely disconnected from the world of Western technologists, and we have to recapture that. Humanity has, we have to wrest that power away from these technologists and tech cultural forces, the tech-minded folks who uphold them, and build this thing that is a revolutionary cybernetic socialist, using this most powerful tool that's ever existed to bring about a humane and sustainable world in the time that we have left. Humankind has long dreamt of a world free from the drudgery of labor, and that would have come to pass, I believe, already to a far higher degree were it not for these forces, namely the anti-communist / fascist United States and North Atlantic powers. This would be a world where people are economically secure and able then to feel, to act in a way that they are not alienated from their labor, pursue their genuine passions and intellectual curiosities, The rise of advanced computing, so-called AI, presents a unique opportunity for the realization of this dream in our time, despite setbacks. This essay proposes a roadmap for building, um, as I said, an AI agentic class network that would lead to a, a real techno utopia, in my view. And could be done in very short order, were it demanded of the people. And this is a world like that predicted of not just um, economists uh, like Keynes in the early 20th and mid 20th century, but quite nearly everyone, including socialists. A world where work requirements on the part of the average worker are a good deal less. Keynes predicted 15 hours a week. We've moved in the opposite direction overall in many areas here. But we can build a world free from such laborious requirements. And that is a world that can be built by building a network of AI agentic class networks. And since the dawn of civilization, human existence has been inextricably linked to toil. While work in many respects has driven progress and innovation, it has also imposed a significant burden. Manual labor can be physically demanding and mentally draining, leaving individuals with little time or energy for self-actualization. This historical reality has been weaponized against people in the late 20th and early 21st century, as evidenced in works of great influence in the United States, such as the Powell Memorandum, which basically describes maintaining inhumane systems, among other things, enforcing abnormally high housing costs and unnaturally low wages for the mass of workers in the United States, and other such hurdles that would keep them from becoming even educated enough to understand that they are alienated from their labor, and that the collective is capable of rectifying that. Most Americans have very, very little understanding of this, and when prompted in discussions of this, they say, well, they basically use the argument that very situation against themselves, saying, I simply don't have the time or energy to think about this. By and large, of course, everyone has some degree of mental energy to think about this. So this is largely just elitist double talk. The revolutionary cybernetic socialist outcome proposes a future where advanced computing solutions, such as the AI agentic class network, frequently described on this channel, automate nearly all forms of labor, which we should say that many sectors are already highly automated, but they are optimized, so to speak, to benefit the bourgeois class and not working people. So we automate forms of labor for the working, to benefit working people, freeing humans to pursue their passions. This would be coupled with social systems in the various nations that guarantee universal basic services or guaranteed incomes, or other benefit systems tied to the network itself, allowing citizens to ensure a baseline standard of living and to do the good work that the AI agentic class network would be doing. As I've said, I think this AI agentic class network would adhere to a kind of what could be called the Sleeping Beauty model, where the a user downloads a specially tailored open source large language model. It is specially tailored to work with other LLMs, and thus creating a mass of a core of semi-autonomous workers in the form of these AIs, and and the human beings engaging with it, their primary job is to steer it and keep it from hallucinating, which it's very apt to do at this time, keep it from grinding to a halt or being sabotaged. And this would be a Sleeping Beauty model because basically it just requires that people download this to their computers and run it, keep it connected to the network, and then answer just a few very brief emails, let's say, in the course of a week in service to maintaining it. And this is superior to other capitalistic work paradigms because we are all basically at this time forced to participate in systems, again enforced by the likes of the military-industrial complex. We're forced to participate in a variety of systems and practices that are not even close to being sustainable. But we have no choice but to engage in unsustainable behavior. And also the cruelty of those systems. Again, we have high automation or near full automation across many sectors, but what we've seen instead is a professional managerial class commandeering that high automation to benefit the bourgeois, the billionaire class, and other people working more, as described in the Powell Memorandum. That's a wrong history, but it's nevertheless the world that we live in. The core of the AI agentic class network, as Utopia, lies in the development of such autonomous work groups. These are not simply intelligent machines, but rather complex systems involving human users and series of GPUs connected in this way. But they, at scale, are capable of not just semi-autonomous or independent action on the part of the network, but a real creative thought and work beyond the standards of today, becoming a basis for action and decision making within defined frameworks, such as I've described on this channel, developing in a city like San Diego or Lagos a desalination plant that would transform life for the people in that city. That's a project that could be spearheaded by a few 100,000 in this AI agentic class network. As you move into millions, you're not merely transforming cityscapes in different ways. You're in a position to perhaps reverse the effects of the capitalist climate apocalypse in our time, and take on more significant tasks for the benefit of humankind. AI agentic class networks are able of handling a vast array of tasks at once, and facilitating manual labor, and also engaging in complex cognitive functions currently served by groups of humans, but in a faster and more efficient way. Imagine how resource management, infrastructure maintenance, and scientific research are already being transformed by the automation of intelligence in the form of the use of things like these digital assistants that are high-level writing assistants, allowing people to do in small groups better class work. This overall effect can continue, but be dramatically better by the use of the networked work group. Agentic class networks would possess the ability to continuously learn and adapt. This should not be understated because this core of AI agentic workers, the chatbots, that is, could, in short order, become so capable in learning and adapting that they would reach a kind of recursion point where they would become self-improving within those systems and become dramatically better at completing tasks effectively as a result. These AI agentic class work groups would seamlessly collaborate and coordinate their efforts across various sectors and domains, ensuring optimal resource allocation and class and task completion well beyond that of the standards of today, I think, in a short order. AI agentic class networks would be programmed with a robust ethical framework, ensuring them to make decisions that prioritize human well-being and societal good. That's why I think it's also important to include human beings in this as much as possible, even if in a few years it's possible to fully automate the AI agentic network. And I think as you grow from hundreds of thousands to, say, millions of human users being a part of this network, you will be building something that's basically idiot-proof. It won't require that human beings working within it are themselves scientific socialists, although they should be. Similarly, it will be as it grows larger and larger, it will be harder for it to make mistakes, so to speak, or be derailed by bad actors because of this tremendous force multiplier and insight and oversight on the part of all the people involved. Technical considerations for building AI agentic networks as work groups. The development of AI agentic class networks will necessitate significant advancements in various advanced computing subfields, but I feel if we were able to have a true assessment of these technologies that are not siloed and protected by things like so-called trade secrets, we would, and were themselves then open sourced for these purposes, we would see that companies like Google, for example, could easily facilitate the building of this sort of thing today. However, we have to gain access to these in one way or another. So machine learning of a better kind will be required for AI agentic class networks to process vast amounts of data and make accurate predictions and undertake projects capably. Improvements in natural language processing will be necessary to more effectively interact with the human overseers of the AI agentic mass. Robotics and control systems to truly reach this post-scarcity world. We have to be able to physically manipulate the world to a high degree without the need for the exploitation of the human worker. This necessitates advanced robotic capabilities coupled with robust control systems. This is another area where the so-called private sector is monopolizing these things, where they could be used in the ways that I've described. And artificial general intelligence is not a prerequisite for building this thing, but the development of artificial general intelligence would significantly enhance the AI agentic class network work groups' capabilities. It's perhaps an irony that this AI agentic class network could become an effective superintelligence before any individual node would deem to be artificially generally intelligent. Um, Cultivating cybernetic socialism, further considerations. The technical development of an AI agentic class work group is one piece of a puzzle that is Utopia. Building a just and equitable a society requires careful consideration of a variety of socioeconomic factors. As I mentioned, the provision of universal basic services, income guarantees, or um, the removal of the from the equation of economic instability through other means is a big part of this, and I've said before that it should be approached from a triage perspective. So perhaps for example, the Lagos desal plant that would help the people there is better than the San Diego desal plant as a project for work groups such as this, because um, not just from the perspective that people in Nigeria have been exploited by Western colonial and neo-colonial institutions to this day. That's the sole reason for the existence of things like um, the IMF and World Bank, is to cheat at monopoly and handicap people who would otherwise be liberated. Um, but also just this basic triage logic that we have to help the people who are in the worst situations first. And um, this transformation into a world where there is not economic instability allows all individuals concerned to pursue education of the kind that would facilitate the growth of the work group, or the kind that whatever they would prefer, other creative endeavors, and allow them to enjoy their leisure time. As I said, the functioning of this work group would be such as to require, I think, less than what Keynes or 20th century folks. Keynes was a capitalist economist, and so not a person to be admired, but he is an example of a person who was thinking about this specific set of concerns. Would have less time requirements than what Keynes imagined of 15 to 20 hour work week. I think this we're working within this AI agentic work group framework. Would be something more like 5 hours a week requirement for all workers. The shift toward an AI agentic class, near term realized utopia, will necessitate a reevaluation of educational institutions, not just doing away with for-profit educational institution, or the educational institution as essentially a military-industrial complex cutout, or a high degree of integration there, but also the ability to use this networked space to equip individuals with the skills and knowledge required in a way more consistent with this AI-run world, not this paper chase, the absurd thing that exists today. This may evolve focusing on creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and interpersonal skills. Considerations for governance. AI agentic class networks, like any system based on advanced computing or not, are susceptible to biases, in this case biases from training data. Careful attention must be paid to ensure that the work group is operating in a fair way, and avoids, just as it must avoid the AI hallucination, a commonplace problem for today's LLMs. We have to ensure that it does not unwittingly begin supporting or engaging in discriminatory practices, phenomena well understood if you have a survey of Western technology of the present. Job displacement um, it must be mitigated in the ways that I've described. And while generally I am for insurgent action against the forces of the bourgeois, there's a context in which that is not suitable. Social unrest once at the realization of the AI agentic class network as a global force, um, we must avoid contributing to situations that would create further unrest at that point, once a humane and sustainable world is well underway. Addressing these concerns through the provision of universal services, and wage and guarantees of wages and necessaries, reskilling programs allowing people to participate in ways that they see fit. Although, as I've said, the AI agentic class work group requires no specific skills of this kind of users. The skill, the already today's large language models have a good deal more knowledge than any person could possibly have, requiring little specialization relatively from a part of the people working with them today. Um, and so that will be, I think, further in evidence when you have larger work groups of this kind. But nevertheless, education is a fundamental human right that people must have the choice to engage with. The control of AI agentic class networks, this type of power, the kind that would be powerful enough to, say, render irrelevant or be in a position to dismantle something as horrible and destructive as the United States military-industrial complex, would also necessitate robust governance structures within the AI agentic class network. Clear guidelines and oversight mechanisms must be established to prevent missteps, misuse, and ensure continued alignment and perpetuity of the work group with human values. And thus, we can begin to see that the transition to a cybernetic socialist economy is possible. This is a technological planned economy that could be built easily tomorrow based on existing technology. Um, the the technological hurdles of today should be viewed more as um, areas where more advanced technology would simply allow for better the building of this network. It should not be reason to, say, begin building this network today. It's the prospect of the backlashes and societal resistance to the use of advanced computing in this way is very real and difficult to predict. Um, um, the automation of intelligence is likely to generate fear and resistance from people on a number of bases, including concerns about job displacement. Again, be reminded that job displacement is a defining feature of industrial and financial capitalism, and high degrees of automation across many sectors have already created a tremendous amount of job displacement. So, for example, in the years before the emergence of full-fledged industrial capital, the United States had enslaved farm workers of African descent, and these people were ostensibly emancipated, but continue to be to live under apartheid and slavery with more steps, so to speak, such as that at the prison industrial complex, and systemic exclusion from work. So this coincides with the development in the 20th century of near full automation of farming systems, um, whereas before enslaved workers or sharecroppers were doing a lion's share or a great deal of this work, oftentimes the lion's share. But these people were not the direct beneficiaries of this near full automation, nor did they even receive the booby prize of having things like a housing authority or public health service to allow to reward them for their generations of hard work. Rather, they've been treated largely as pariahs and subject to apartheid conditions and other abuses. And so concerns by largely European descended AI pundits about job displacement never talk about the extent of job displacement that's already occurred, or things like this system of, as described as in the Powell Memorandum, of abnormally high housing costs and costs of living and artificially low wages designed to keep people on the knife's edge and not be in a position to assert their class interests. So the only way to talk about something like job displacement is to talk about it as a scientific socialist, which virtually no AI talking points, repeating personalities are inclined to do. The ensuring that the benefits of this post-scarcity level of automation and intelligence automation are equitably distributed across society is absolutely critical. And so we have to begin to envision and build robust social safety nets like those which would derive from the AI agentic class network as achieved at large scale, and a commitment to social justice, which is always first and foremost really economic justice, must always be at the forefront of our minds. The AI agentic class network work group as Utopia presents a compelling vision of a world free from cruelty and onerous labor and penury. Challenges, of course, must be overcome, but the potential benefits are undeniable. By harnessing the power of nearly full automation, advanced computing paradigms, and embracing the principles of revolutionary cybernetic socialism, we can create a future where everyone has the opportunity to flourish. And the responsibility of people of our generation is to act on this within the 5-year time frame before we reach runaway overheating from capitalism's climate apocalypse, potentially leading to human extinction, or if not full extinction, a death of many billions, is, I think, directly tied to the development and implementation of AI agentic class networks. And as we do realize this, we have immense opportunities there. And this current generation, not people in the year 2025, 25, not some people living in some Jetsons world of the future, but we today have a responsibility to bring about this transformation and do it in such a way that we are committed to the essential sustainability, stability, and humanity of these systems. This essay is meant to be a broad but a hopefully useful roadmap for the building of near-term utopia through the use of AI agentic work groups. But further research would be required to understand how the economic models would truly function, how to build legal frameworks around this set of systems, and what the socio-political phenomena within it might begin to look like. Um, I'd like to end by saying these words that I haven't said in a while. The artificial intelligence singularity is nigh, and wonders to behold beyond imagining. And on that fateful day you will rise, and all humankind will become as one, for techno-communism will win. Thank you.